Alright guys, in this video we're going to take a look at the volume of prisms and cylinders. Now this is starting off a unit about volume, and the first ones we're going to look at are our prisms and cylinders. So let's first talk about what a prism is. So a prism is a shape that has parallel bases that are the same size. Okay, and so it's a 3D shape, so the lines also are all parallel. So you can notice in this picture, like I've got a square here for the top and the bottom for my bases, and then I've got lines coming straight down to create a prism. Okay, or here I've got a triangular base, another triangular base. I've got lines coming down. Okay, so you can kind of see our two different prisms here. Okay, so they could come in all different sizes. You can have hexagons, you could have rectangles, you can have all the different sizes. The most common ones you'll see are squares and rectangles, and then sometimes also triangles. Now let's talk about how we solve for volume in a prism. Now it's actually very simple. The formula is the area of the base times the height. Okay, capital B here means area of the base. Now, if we don't remember how. Let's think about how do we solve for the area of a shape. Well, if it's a rectangle, what I do is I multiply length times width. Now, I'll include a formula sheet so that way you can take a look and see what these different formulas are, and a lot of times they'll have the two-dimensional shapes as well as the three-dimensional shapes. But area of the base, so this is the base is always the parallel sections. It's not necessarily the top and the bottom. It could be sideways, it could be flipped or turned, but it's basically your two top and bottom. Now in this case I've highlighted them in yellow. So let's go ahead and solve this. So what we're going to do is area of the base is 7 times 9. So this would be my capital B portion, and then times the height. Now this height is the height between the bases, okay, the distance between the bases. Again, if I flipped it on its side, the height would still be going this way instead of going up and down. It's not necessarily an up and down number. It just means the distance between the bases. All right. And so if I was going to solve this out, I get 63 times 11, which comes out to 693. So the volume of this prism, whatever, say these were inches, this would be 693 inches cubed. Okay, so let's say these were all inches here. This would be inches cubed because we multiplied inches times inches times inches. Okay. All right, let's try another one. Those other ones are pretty simple. Let's look at a triangular base. Now, this is where people have a hard time, okay? And they have a hard time because they don't remember how to find the area of a triangle. Now, the area of a triangle is 1/2 small b times small h, okay? 1/2 base times height is equal to the area of a triangle, okay? So area of a triangle. Now, let's just think about the base. Notice how my bases here are triangles. This is why we're talking about triangles. Notice this base and that base. Those are my two parallel sections. Okay, so my height here for my prism would be 9. So this h over here is going to be 9. But I need to consider this triangle right here, and I need to find that area. So 1/2 base times height. Now notice this is not the height of the prism. It's the height of the base. So the height of the base here is actually 5. Remember that the base of the triangle and the height of the triangle should be perpendicular to each other, so they should make 90 degrees. So the base is times 4, the height is times 5, and that gets me equal to 10. So if I'm solving this out, the area of the base, the area of the triangle is equal to 10, the height of the prism is equal to 9, and so I would get 90, and again, whatever units I'd have, it would be cubed. All right, now that's where people struggle. They struggle because you have to think about the height separately. This is a height of a triangle versus the height of the prism. So do be careful when you're dealing with triangle bases. All right, let's look at one more here. Let's see if I can solve for the volume of this prism. Or actually, instead of solving for volume, we're going to solve for the height. So in this case, they gave me the volume at 108. I need to solve for the height. Well, this is actually going to be pretty simple. So I know base, the area of the base, 3 times 4 times the height is equal to volume. Well, my volume in this case is equal to 108. So if we simplify this out, 12h is equal to 108. Divide both sides by 12, right? I get h is equal to 9. All right, so that would solve for the height. So you can also work backwards. Now, there's a special kind of prism called a cylinder. Now a cylinder is just a prism with circles for the bases, okay? So you can think of like a soup can or a paint can, or really just any type of can largely is gonna have, circles and be some sort of a prism. Now, the volume of a cylinder is the same as the volume of any other prism. It's still base times height. Now, what makes this different though is how do I find the area of a circle? Well, I find the area of a circle by doing pi r squared. So it's pi r squared, because that's the area of a circle, times the height. So it's the same idea here. The difference is that we have a set way that we're going to solve for the area of the base, and that's by using pi r squared. All right, so let's take a look at this one. I've got pi r squared h, so pi 6 squared times 13, and I'm going to need a calculator for that. So 6 squared times 13 gets me 468. So I end up with 468 pi. So you could leave that as your answer if it asks for it in terms of pi. I'm going to multiply the numbers together to leave the pi on the side if it asks for terms of pi. But if it asks for something like nearest tenth, I'm going to multiply by pi, and I get 1,470 and 70.3, okay, if I round that off. So once again, we're just going to plug into the formula. These are formulas that you would get on, say, the Virginia SOL. These are formulas that you would get. All right, let's work on one. Hang on, let's get rid of that. The volume is 891 pi, so we're working backwards here. What is the height? So we're going to work backwards, so I know pi 9 squared times h is equal to 891 pi. I'm going to start by dividing both sides by pi. That's actually going to kind of clean this up a bit. So those guys go away and these guys go away. And so I have 81 pi, or 81h, I'm sorry, divided by 891. Divide both sides by 81. I get h is equal to 11. That would be my final height there. All right, so that really wraps up solving for volume of prisms and cylinders. It's really not that complicated. The big idea here is area of the base times the height. The place where people tend to get stuck is that they don't have a great grasp of how to find areas of bases, whether that's squares, rectangles, triangles, circles, things like that. So, but this reviews everything. At this point, you should be able to go ahead and solve for problems looking for volumes of prisms and cylinders.